What's up, guys? Today we're going to talk about the Seattle Mariners and have a mid-season review of the Seattle Mariners. We will talk about the coaching, not necessarily in this order, but the coaching, the pitching, the fielding, and the hitting, and what the team needs to do for the rest of the season. And then we will talk about some topics of conversation that have come up throughout the season due to technical difficulties. I haven't been able to elaborate on them. So this might be a little long, FYI. So let's start with the positives. The fielding for the 2012 Seattle Mariners is pretty decent. Dustin Ackley's turned into a fine second baseman. Casper Wells has made some really nice plays out in the outfield. Those are just examples. So the only position where that's kind of is behind the plate with Miguel Olivo. Don't get me wrong, I never like to see anybody get hurt, but I think the Miguel Olivo injury was a blessing in disguise, because we got to see Jesus Montero come in and see what he looks as of now as a major league catcher, and he had some couple good games. He wasn't great, wasn't bad. It was decent. It was all right. So the fielding, pretty good. The coaching staff. I have a tendency to support Seattle Mariners managers. The only two I didn't support were Jim Ringelman and Darren Brown, mainly because those two guys had that job on an interim basis, and we knew that they weren't going to be here for the long term. But that being said, even though I supported Bob Melvin, Mike Hargrove, John McLaren, and Don Wakamatsu, I have not seen this much fire in a manager since Lou Piniella in terms of Eric Wedge. I really do like his approach. I like the fact that he's doing his best to hold players accountable, and I do like the fact that he's calling people out during press conferences. Even though I am a fan of Ichiro Suzuki, we'll talk more about him later, he's the only Mariner manager that has gotten him out of the leadoff spot, which I do think says a lot. So, then again, I was fine with Ichiro going back to the leadoff spot, but anyway, more on Ichiro later. So I do think the coaching is good. This is a good coaching staff for a young team and a bunch of young players. The pitching. First, may I say this. At the beginning of the season, I said the biggest wild card on this team was Brandon Leake. Now, I'm not going to come on here in camera and say, we need to get rid of him, he's garbage, he's blah, blah, blah. Why? Because he made me eat my words last year, and he did show me that he can, in fact, pitch last year. But I will say that I think him being demoted from the closer role proves my point, as he was the biggest wild card. Again, when he's on, he's on. When he's off, he's off. Other than that, the pitching has been pretty much everything I expected. Both the starting rotation and the bullpen have taken their bumps and bruises along the way. We've gone through some growing pains. Even players who have been injured have had some, you can say they've had some good outings. Like Kevin Millwood, was terrible at the beginning of the year. Before he got hurt, he actually had some pretty decent outings. You look at Hisashi Iwakuma. Guy had terrible spring training stats, comes in as a middle relief, does an okay job, and now, as of right now, he's back in the starting rotation due to filling in for players who are hurt. And, he's not doing the best job, but, he's doing a good enough job as a fifth starter to help us win. Other than that, Felix Hernandez is Felix Hernandez, and Jason Vargas is Jason Vargas. And pretty much they've had some times where they look great, and they've had some times where they look awful. Heck, this is a team that did, after all, pitch a six-man combined no-hitter midway through the season, and then we got blown up on more than one occasion against good, solid opponents. So, pitching is kind of where I expected it to be. Now the hitting. Oh, man. Where do you start? I will take the small victories where they are. Example, the Mariners have scored more runs at this point of the season than they have the last 2 years. Okay, that's a good sign. The Mariners, as a team, are batting better at this time last year than they were last year. By a good 10 average points. But again, I will take it. I will take it. Also, the Mariners have hit more home runs at this point than they did last year. But as a collective unit, again, our offense is atrocious. The rookies are the rookies and the young players. They're not hitting the ball. End of story. They're not hitting the ball. I was really hoping the last time I came on, I was actually really positive about the Seattle Mariners because we were a really streaky team at one point. You know, there'd be some times where we would win 6 in a row and then we lose 6 in a row. I mean, and we just kept going back and forth. I mean, there were some days we looked awesome, and there were other days where we looked terrible. You know, on all fronts, pitching, hitting, fielding, and that type of deal. But as the last month in June came to a close, again, we cannot hit. We went 4-6 in our last homestand, and batted something like 175 or 217, or it was some ridiculously low number. It was something like that, and you can't hit that way and try and win games. I mean, since we batted so poorly, in that last homestand, I mean, frankly, I'm surprised we won any games. And as long as we don't have a 25 to 30 home run guy, and we don't have other guys who can bat over 300, this offense is going to stink. And that's what I said in my preview video, and it's showing that that's where it is right now. What I don't understand is why Jack Sorenzik and the front office will not go out and get a veteran presence. I completely understand their approach in terms of trying to develop kids and develop talent and have these young kids grow together, and I get that. But in order for them to grow and then for them to improve, they need to have somebody to protect them. And we need to have a veteran presence, and we don't have that right now. Miguel Olivo, Brendan Ryan, and Ichiro Suzuki are not the veteran presence. Don't have that veteran presence that this team needs anymore. Unfortunately, and I mean, even in the offseason, I know I didn't talk too much about the Mariners in the offseason, but I had a good idea that Pujols wasn't going to come here. I wanted Prince Fielder to come. I was hoping on pins and needles that he would come, but he didn't come over to Seattle, and but it got to the point where the list just kept getting shorter and shorter and shorter of guys that just have a veteran presence, a guy that could lead a team of young players. I mean, at one point, even though his batting stats were very bad in Tampa Bay, at one point I was even saying go get Johnny Damon. Not necessarily for the .214 batting average, and you might say, well, how is that going to improve the lineup? Well, he would at least carry a veteran presence in the lineup, and he would be a leader. He would be the veteran leader, and he would be somebody the kids can look up to in terms of being up and down at the major league level. So, but for some odd reason, we're just twiddling our thumbs and just waiting for a miracle with these kids. And that being said, it doesn't matter at the end of the season if we have a 300 hitter. It doesn't matter if we have, like, Felix Hernandez is an all-star this year, but at the end of the year, that doesn't matter. If we lose 90 games this year, it's a failed season. I'll take 89 losses. But in order for Jack Sorenzik's plan to keep going forward, we need to start seeing some victories. And I'm trying to be as patient as I can with Jack Sorenzik. I really am. So, I mean, I don't know if I said this on camera, but I said I would give him 5 years, and I ended up extending that by 1 year because of his contract extension. So, plus, the first 2 years were kind of up and down. So, I mean, now this is his team. With the exception of Felix Hernandez and Ichiro Suzuki, this is his team. So, we need to see some wins, though. We lose 90 games, it's a failed season. And Jack Sorenzik's plan is going to take a major turn in the wrong direction. And I don't want that. And I want the kids to succeed. I want Smoke to succeed. I want Ackley, Seager, Wells, I want all these kids to succeed. I want Montero to succeed. And it's looking very bleak. And so for the second half of the season, basically what the Mariners have to play for is avoid 90 losses. Seriously, just avoid 90 losses. Unfortunately, we're on pace for another 90-loss season, which is really unfortunate. But I'm really hoping that since we're out of the race, and there's a good portion of teams that are out of the race, we'll start to see maybe some weaker opponents, and maybe that will translate into some wins. But I mean, even that is kind of a stretch because it's starting to get to the point where, again, like last year and the year before, you got these no-name starting pitchers, and they're doing well, ridiculously well against us. They're looking like every single pitcher is starting to look like Nolan Ryan. I mean, that's how bad our offense is. I mean, heck, we had a perfect game thrown against us this year. So, avoid 90 losses. That's what I'm going to be shooting for the second half of the season. And if we lose 90 games, everyone's going to start questioning Jack Sorensen. And it ain't going to be pretty. It's not going to be pretty. So that's where the team sits now. We talked about the hitting, pitching, fielding, coaching. Let's talk about some conversations that have come up as the season has gone on. And unfortunately, I haven't got an opportunity to touch on, so I'm doing it now. Number one. Topic conversation number one, trading Felix Hernandez. Every year at about the end of May, the topic of conversation about Felix Hernandez being traded always comes up. Not only comes up in the Seattle area, but it comes up in the national spotlight, the national media, which I have no idea why. I mean, because 9 times out of 10, I mean, this is a bad thing, but I mean, Seattle is tucked away in the Great Northwest. As much as I hate that saying, it's true. And it's kind of odd that, at the end of May and throughout the month of June and a little bit of July, the national media will suggest the Seattle Mariners trade Felix Hernandez. Find it kind of odd. Out of all the things that you could talk about that are happening in Seattle, you talk about trading a potential Cy Young Award winner and a guy who could potentially win the Cy Young Award this year. So, that being said, there is only one word that I can describe this idea, and that's stupid. I mean, it's really stupid. I understand where people are coming from in the sense of saying we could get a lot for Felix Hernandez. We can get a major league ready prospect for him. We could get a major leaguer, a guy who's already had success in the major leagues, for Felix Hernandez. We could get a lot for him, and that is a good point, but at the same time, financially, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, that's the reason why I say it's stupid, because you're not going to trade away a guy that you signed to a contract extension. You have to pay him $19 million this year and $20 million next year and in 2014. That's an expensive investment, and you're going to trade that away to have that pitcher play for a different team, and you're going to have to pay for him, and not only that, 9 times out of 10, he's probably going to face off against you. That is not a good move. It's not a good move, and frankly, I really wish that we would get off that conversation, because at the end of the day, again, financially, it doesn't make sense. What we should be doing is cherishing Hernandez. There is a good chance that he is going to walk at the end of the 2014 season. And frankly, if he does, I don't blame him. The guy can't buy a win right now. And he's pitching his arm off, for a team that can't score any runs, and he hasn't tasted the postseason yet. But we should be enjoying him here now. We should be talking about Felix Hernandez being traded during either the offseason, the 2013-2014 offseason, or during the 2014 trading deadline. Because as much as I did enjoy seeing Cliff Lee, as I compare and contrast, I knew that his time in Seattle was going to be small. And I think, like many other Seattle Mariner fans, we enjoyed watching Cliff Lee pitch. But when we started to struggle and we started to lose, then the topics of trading him came up. Okay, it made sense at the time. You got a big league pitcher who's won the Cy Young Award, who just came from a World Series team, who wants to win a championship, who, okay, it made sense for us to trade him because chances are he wasn't going to sign with us. All right, we talked about it. The timing was good. All right, I don't understand why we can't do the same thing with Felix Hernandez. Again, we should be talking about this in either the 2013-2014 offseason or during the 2014 MLB season, because financially, it does not make sense. So, that's where I stand on trading Felix Hernandez. Number 2, trading Ichiro Suzuki. Oh, boy. Oh, man, I am an Ichiro supporter, but, man, just... I don't get this. I don't understand the controversy with Ichiro. I never have. I mean, this whole thing started in 2008 when the Mariners were on their way to losing 101 games with the most expensive payroll in the history of Major League Baseball. And, we were blaming, I was involved with the media, with the Mariners radio outlet, in Ellensburg, and, every single day, it was Carlos Silva did this, blame Richie Sexton for this, blame Brad Wilkerson for this, blame, Adrian Beltre for this, blame this guy, blame Kenji Jojima. And then all of a sudden Ichiro came up, and I'm thinking, why in the world are we putting Ichiro into this category? He's the only good player on the team. And still, it doesn't make any sense to me. The fact that Ichiro, regardless if you like him or not, is going to go into the Hall of Fame wearing a Seattle Mariners jersey. A hat, excuse me. He's going to go in, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. And I can stand before you today and you have no problem saying that Ichiro Suzuki is the greatest leadoff hitter ever to play the game. His stats are phenomenal, with the exception of the last 2 years. His career stats have been phenomenal. And I don't understand why, instead of putting him in the same category as Griffey, Randy Johnson, John Olerud, Edgar Martinez, Jay Buhner, Alvin Davis, I'll even go ahead and throw Dave Niehaus in there, even though he wasn't a player, he was an announcer. But I don't understand why he is not one of the most beloved Mariners of all time, because he's got all these records and he's played his tail off. Instead, he's put in this. We painted him like he's this, he's this person, and it's just like, no. If Ichiro is, again, it's very mind-boggling to me. I have a difficult time, just thinking about it. I've heard people saying, well, he's a me guy, and he needs to be the leader. No, he doesn't. Seriously, who said Ichiro Suzuki had to lead the team? That's what I want to know, all right? This started in 2008. Ichiro Suzuki needs to lead the team. And, this is from the media, this is from some fans. And I'm thinking, why does Ichiro need to be the leader? Why are we pinpointing all this responsibility on Ichiro Suzuki? All right? There are leaders, there are followers. It's obvious that Ichiro is a follower. There's nothing wrong with that. There's also nothing wrong in leading by example, which a lot of Japanese players do. They lead by example. And you're telling me that I have that a potential Hall of Famer, not to acknowledge what he's done is and say that he's part of the problem is I don't get it. I don't get it. I really don't. That being said, though, if we are going to trade him, now is the time to do it. And the reason why is because this is the final year of his contract, and we could get some. I do think we could get some things for him, or we could get some things for him, like a couple prospects, or a guy who's already playing at the major league level. And I say that because I don't necessarily know if Ichiro is going to re-sign with the Mariners. And if he walks, good for him. I really hope that he goes out and wins the World Series after he's played his tail off for us all these years and gone through something like 7 or 8 managers or something like that. But that being said, if we're going to trade him, now is the time, because the last thing that we need is for him to play the rest of the year with the Seattle Mariners And then all of a sudden you get into the conversation, kind of what Edgar Martinez was in the last year as a Seattle Mariner, where do you sign him or do you have somebody come in and take his place and have a kid develop and that type of deal? So, which is already a sticky conversation as it is. So, if we are going to trade Ichiro Suzuki, now is the time. So, if the Mariners do trade Ichiro, I will be surprised, but I won't be hurt. And frankly, I do hope Ichiro does eventually win a World Series, and he'll be one of the few Seattle Mariners that leaves. And I frankly hope that he just whoops us every single time we play him, just to get all these Ichiro haters to shut up. I mean, again, I don't get it. So that's topic number two, excuse me. Topic number 3, moving in the fences at Safeco Field. Okay, this is a cop-out. Okay, people are saying you need to move in the fences so that way our hitting stats can go up. This is a cop-out. Okay, we have won at Safeco Field before. Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh, well, that was during the steroid era, and everybody was juicing, and therefore all these records are being broken, and the same thing just happened with the Seattle Mariners. Okay, that was a legitimate argument, but I will counter with this. The reason why I believe the Mariners were so successful, in their first 4 of 5 years at Safeco Field, from 99 to 2003. They adapted to their ballpark. They did not try to hit the ball out of the park. They tried to go after the gaps. If there was runners in scoring position with less than 2 outs, they at least hit the ball in the outfield. They weren't trying to swing for the fences all the time. And I don't understand why we can't take that same approach. If you got a runner on at third base with less than 2 outs, why don't you just hit the ball in the outfield? You know, why don't you sacrifice bunt to the right side? You know, runs are not at a premium right now. You know, they're very rare right now for this team. So if you got a runner at third, just put the ball in play. I mean, seriously, we're not hitting. You might as well just go ahead and make an at-bat, useful, and just get that running. And I don't understand why the Mariners have gone away from that ever since. We don't try to, right-handers don't try to hit to the opposite side of the field anymore. They try to just launch it out to left field, which, as we know, is very hard to do. We don't move runners along. When we do get a base hit, we don't take that extra base. And that's the reason why I think that moving the fences in is not a good solution. Sure, you can make an example of the Tigers and the Mets, but then again, number one, Citi Field is a brand new ballpark, and number two, the Mariners have had success in Safeco Field before, and I'm pretty sure they can do it again. Not only that, if you move the fences in, the pitching stats are gonna go up. They're not gonna be as good as they are. All of a sudden, all these no-namers who are coming through the minor leagues and all these high talented prospects, these pitching prospects, they're going to come in and they're going to struggle. And then people are going to be complaining, oh, well, we shouldn't have moved the fences in, and that's happening. And you don't want that. Another thing, and finally to close this discussion up, when the Mariners were good in the mid to late 90s in Seattle's Kingdom, their biggest problem was the bullpen. Did you hear anybody saying that we need to move the fences out in the Kingdom? No, you didn't. End of story. You did not. You did not hear anybody say, oh, we need to fix the Kingdom. No. So why do we need to adjust our ballpark now? So again, I do think that moving the fences in is a cop-out. And if we do it, all right, that's nothing that I can control. But if the Mariners do, in fact, move the fences in at the beginning of the season, I don't want to hear any complaints from any Seattle Mariners fans about our pitching. Seriously. Because that's ultimately what's going to happen. The hitters will, it's going to go, it could potentially go from a pitcher's ballpark to a hitter's ballpark, and then people would be complaining about the pitching. So that's, we talked about the team and the 3 conversations that have come up. If you got any comments, feel free to comment below. Thanks for watching this long video, and go M's. Again, avoid 90 losses at all costs, please. I don't want to have the conversation of whether or not Jack Cerenzic's plan is working. Please. I really, really don't want to have that conversation. Not just for my sake, but for his sake and for this team's sake. So, thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you all later.